Episode 1, Sexual Intercourse, and the Road to Evolution. Lecturer. Amyloidosis. Cause unknown. And former member of the House of Representatives. Antonio Inoki. Developed amyloidosis. Cause unknown. And Tomotakeshi Shinoda, Prof. Graduate School of Tokyo Metropolitan University. Institute of Psychiatry, Geriatrics. And Ariana Tiffany. Our Will.
The stars light up the sky. We see them flying free.
元気があれば何でもできる。元気があれば質問もできるということで。
Good day. How are you? How have you been doing? If you have spirits, you can do anything. Antonio Inoki discusses his cardiac amyloidosis diagnosis. Antonio Inoki, that was published in Weekly Shincho's July 23, 2020 issue. Inoki revealed to the publication that he is suffering from cardiac amyloidosis. This develops when an abnormal protein builds up in your organs and it can interfere with their normal functions. That proteins, you can do anything. Antonio Inoki discusses his cardiac amyloidosis diagnosis. Antonio Inoki, that was published in Weekly Shincho's July 23, 2020 issue. Inoki revealed to the publication that he is suffering from cardiac amyloidosis. This develops when an abnormal protein builds up in your organs and it can interfere with their normal functions. That protein can
Cabinet met this morning to discuss our next actions in the fight against COVID-19. Like the rest of the world, we are facing the potential for devastating impacts from this virus. But through decisive action and by working together, we do have a small window to get ahead of it. On Saturday, I announced a COVID-19 alert level system, and at that time we placed New Zealand at alert level 2. I also said we should all be prepared to move quickly. Now is the time to put our plans into action. We are fortunate.
Basically, everything is unclear, but like a psychic phenomenon. In Japan, Turu, dead shoe. Tururo, Kataoka, he is, he person, stupid old man. Cranky, stupid, so crazy old man. Infectious and systemic inflammatory response due to unknown infectious factors. There is occurring a big infectious explosion on the Earth. The cause is unknown. It is very likely that this Japanese man, Tururo Kataoka, mysterious guy, Japanese old man, holds the key. He is called Kondo or Tsutaro. His maxim is that when a person tells a lie, people has a serious face. He always says, under these circumstances, he says, as the inflammatory response of this 120 years old in Indian yoga continues to occur worldwide, on Earth, and an infectious disease, he wants to live up to the physiological age limit until of 120 years old as human. He says he will live up to 120 years old in doing Indian yoga. In Japan, beat the mime so crazy. Right now go to mental hospital or die.
めない繰り返し今宵また指にくる震え息吐くほど息吐くほど飲んであおってぶつんいくも息吐くほど息吐くほど便座にへたり込む俺は酒を飲むたびに飲まれてく
ブ 7 million yen to 96 people on 121 occasions between March and August last year. The recipients included local politicians and other influential people in Hiroshima Prefecture, where Kawai Anri ran for a seat. Of the total, she allegedly conspired with her husband to pay 1.7 million yen to 5 people on 5 occasions. They have denied the allegations.
Yet.
The two left the ruling Liberal Democratic Party on Wednesday.
"欧米、中東で続くテロ。テロは遠い世界での出来事と思うかもしれない。しかしかつて東京で世界が戦慄した大規模テロが発生した。東京中枢部を走る地下鉄車両内で神経ガス、サリンを利用した史上類を見ない無差別テロが発生。この地下鉄サリン事件から四半世紀が経つ。事件が起こしたのは大内修理。当時新規の1万人以上、教祖朝原を頂点とする国際国家樹立を目指し、国境内の象徴性の予定をし、国際宣言を達成に応募しました。
Basically, everything is unclear, but like a psychic phenomenon. In Japan, Turu, deaded shoe. Turutaro, Kataoka, he is, key person, stupid old man. Cranky stupid so crazy old man. Infectious and systemic inflammatory response due to unknown infectious factors. There is occurring a big infectious explosion on the earth. The cause is unknown. It is very likely that this Japanese man, Turutaro, Kataoka, mysterious guy, Japanese, old man, holds the key. He is called Kondo or Tsurutaro. His maxim is that, when a person tells a lie, people has a serious face. He always says, under these circumstances, he says, he will live up to 120 years old in Indian yoga. India. Now, he battle and an infectious disease. Anything.
The levels remain
Basically,
as they were the last time we
is
moved to
unclear,
level 3
but like
in
a
August
psychic
for Auckland.
phenomenon.
That means the main
In
thing we are
Japan,
asking people in Auckland to do is to stay home to avoid any risk of spread.
He is,
that means
key
staying in your
person,
bubble other than
stupid
for
old
essential
man.
personal movement.
Cranky stupid
People
so
should
crazy
work from
old
home
man.
unless that is not
Infectious
possible.
and systemic
If you go outside your
inflammatory
home,
response
please
due
maintain
to unknown
physical
infectious
distancing of 2 meters
factors.
outside.
There is
or
occurring
if
a
you're in a
big
controlled
infectious
environment where you know
explosion on
others
the
present,
earth.
1 meter.
The cause is unknown. It is very likely that this Japanese man, Turutaro, Kataoka, mysterious guy, Japanese, old man, holds the key. He is called Kondo or Tsurutaro. His maxim is that, when a person
元
tells
気
a
があれば
lie,
何でもできる。
people has a
元
serious
気があれば
face.
質問もできるとい
He
うことで
always says, "Good day. How
Under
are you?
these circumstances,
How have you been doing?"
as the inflammatory
If you have
response of
spirits,
this
you
chronic
can do
systemic
anything.
chronic infection
Antonio Inoki discusses
continues to
his
occur
cardiac
worldwide
amyloidosis
on Earth.
diagnosis.
He wants to
Antonio
live up to the
Inoki, that was published in
physiological age
Weekly Shincho's July
until
23, 2020
years
issue.
old as human.
Inoki revealed to the
says
publication that he is
will live up
suffering
to
from cardiac
120
amyloidosis.
years old in doing
This
Indian
develops
yoga
when an abnormal protein
Japan.
builds up in your
People, I'm
organs,
so
and it
crazy.
can interfere
Right
with
now,
their
go to
normal
mental
functions.
hospital or die.
That protein can take the place of a heart.
Only one gene makes sexual orientation on the left and right of female Medaka that prevents one gene from working repeats a movement called courtships in which the body rotates in front of another female. University of Tokyo. This is the behavior confirmed by the research team. ESR2B is a gene that serves as a receiver for female hormones, of Associate Professor Nori Satoshi Okubo and others. The research team refused to court a male when the gene ESR2B was disabled in female Medaka, and found that it would court another female itself. And when it stops working, male hormones that are also present in the female body cause it to behave like a male. During the course of his research, he also found that male hormones are produced in the ovaries, which are unique to females. That sexual orientation gene is switched on and off depending on the ratio of sex hormones. The research team also found that the amount of hormones in both women and men affects whether the ESR2B gene in Medaka works. If the amount of male hormones in the female Medaka is higher than that of female hormones, the ESR2B gene will not work and it will behave like a male. On the contrary, it is said that the ESR2B gene works when the female hormone is increased in the body of fish are known to have the ability to change sex throughout their lives. The researchers say that the balance of sex hormones may make it easier to change the gender of the brain. In the case of humans, it is believed that of humans, a more complicated mechanism or a mechanism that determines such sexual orientation has been discovered in Drosophila. But it is the first time that it has been confirmed in vertebral animals including humans. There is a complex mechanism involving more genes little by little, but it has not yet been elucidated. The big difference between fish and humans is also important. Human sexual orientation is innately determined and does not change due to the environment after birth. And it is said that there is no acquired change. Associate Professor Okubo said, "I don't think that the results of Medaka are directly applicable to humans, but in the case of Medaka, we can see a mechanism that easily changes the sexual orientation. On the flip side, why in the case of humans? The sexual orientation is firmly fixed and changed. I think that it will lead to understanding whether it is absent, and in the long run it will also lead to understanding of human sexuality, or sexual minority people speak." He said he had felt it through his research. There were many Medaka individuals that showed an intermediate behavior pattern between females and males, or showed a sexual orientation. So I could never talk about sex by choosing between males and females. If you look at the whole animal world, I think that the middle is not something special, but it is quite normal. In the video, it is expressed as gender of the heart, but the correct answer is sex.
If the purpose of our being is to leave our footprints in the dusty pages of time, then it can truly be said that Antonio Inoki has achieved just that.
Such morality and humanity are no longer absent, and in this situation the real parents and siblings die and laugh out loud during the funeral, or in a situation where their future is hopeless. There is no work and there are no bright signs. The Japanese archipelago is a country full of monsters that repeat mad acts that cause trouble for people. The capital of that country, the Tokyo Olympics. It's a proof that he has defeated Corona, but he hasn't done anything. Suffice it to say, I am requesting a short-time business at an izakaya. To be clear, the Japan Medical Association has declared that medical care will be destroyed due to the collapse of medical care. If you have an infectious disease for which you do not know the condition, whether it is chilblains or a cold, it will not be counted unless the hospital contacts the health authorities. Neither the Public Health Center, the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, nor the government will carry out PCR tests on children. And not even workers. Self-inspection is possible, but expensive medical expenses are charged at your own expense. This behavior pattern and thought pattern have no meaning. At first, there was a request from the government and the hospital requested to report the patient. It has been forcibly erased by the state of emergency. Moreover, although salivary infections are certain, there is no scientific basis for the pathogen to be coronavirus corona. I don't know if there are really asymptomatic infected people. However, the infectivity is extremely high because anyone, including the White House in the United States, can infect anywhere. I don't know if it's an airborne or saliva infection. Everything is incoherent and uncoordinated. There is no regularity and no one knows anything. I'm not sure. Cancer and Alzheimer's disease are easier to understand from a scientific point of view. No matter how much anyone investigates what this infectious disease is, nothing is known. However, the keywords have been found. It's just words like saliva infection, systemic inflammatory response, and chronic infection. Perhaps in just a moment, everyone is already infected while sleeping. The cause is unknown, and the birthplace of the cause of the problem is the Japanese archipelago. First, instead of the atomic bomb, this time it is necessary to drop a multi-series hypersonic intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM hydrogen bomb. In other words, it goes beyond the spatial dimension. Moreover, the probability of the existence of an object when calculated mathematically follows a probability distribution that depends on thermodynamic factors. Higher organisms are mostly divided into males and females. If you simplify the reason, it can be understood by comparing healthy people and disabled people from various perspectives. In the case of humans, the appearance and appearance are important. Age is a particularly important factor, and overall, people are more likely to be linked to the nausea gene before sex. As a result, men in developed countries, especially young Japanese, use sex shops to leave their genes efficiently and at low cost. Moreover, Japan is also characterized by the fact that many men travel to Southeast Asia and have sex. However, men do not need children for their thinking and behavior patterns. Such thought patterns and behavior patterns are originally incorporated into genes. But basically, you just want to have sex after filling and loading semen. Conversely, girls will have a life and death problem if they do not have children and families by the age of 30. And she will have a child. In that case, it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl. There is no reason. He just wants to breastfeed. In other words, she is in a state of depression, mental illness, in which she does not know what she was born for. However, as children grow up, more and more people tend to regret it. It is one of the phenomena created by Japan's poverty and disparity society. The common language of older Japanese mothers and fathers is that they will never have children and will never want to give birth. Japan is a society where it is extremely difficult to live as a person. This is the opposite of the post-war period of high economic miracles. At that time, if you gave birth to a boy, if it's called a golden egg. In other words, there was a labor shortage. Most of the labor is the personnel required for manufacturing and factory production. There was a time when there were various jobs associated with it, and the Japanese baby boomer generation refers to the generation born at the time of the first baby boom in Japan. Many have followed the life stage of the burnt generation, or after the war, having 2 or more children. Currently, there is only one child. In addition, more than 70% of men are unmarried in the future because they cannot get married, and women are divorced and go to the welfare section of the government office as single mothers. I don't know the reason. However, saliva is the root of infection, which is a chronic, autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, intellectual disability, atopic dermatitis, and other systemic amyloidosis, which is almost a zombie-like biohazard. There is no birth rate in this society. The Tokyo metropolitan government has urgently established a playful system in which 100,000 yen is paid when a child is born. Except for Tokyo, it is almost annihilated. In other words, depopulation is progressing. I have no job because there is no industry, and even if I have children, when I graduate from high school, I come to Tokyo or work. In other words, there are only elderly people in local cities. Based on the thought and behavior patterns of having children, Chinese people are invited to visit Japan as a tourist destination. Or the local government is calling on young people in the city center to do agriculture, forestry and fisheries on their own. It's annihilated. Above the spawning age limit, there is a high risk of having mutant, malformed or handicapped children. Girls seem to be instinctively aware that eggs have a short lifespan. In the early stages, by the age of 10, the growth of girls is extremely high compared to the growth of boys, because such genetic factors are incorporated from the beginning. However, girls generally become childish after the age of 15. It becomes a so-called peace-flirt kawaiko flirts. The mysterious thing is that in Japan, especially recent men don't need children, but if they can get married. I sincerely hope that only girls will be born as a special case. The biggest cause is the economic recession. I'm not married without a house or a car to live in. That is, once a girl is born first, there is generally no next birth. And if you can get married, go to the shrine almost every year, pray, and recite your heart. To be clear, the Japanese sincerely pray that no boys will be born. This is basically because Japanese men are lolicon. In other words, it is a phenomenon that is nothing but an interest in the genitals of girls. Currently, the Tokyo District Court claims that he had sexual intercourse with his real daughter, who was in the second year of high school at the time, and said that he was guilty of sexual intercourse with his father. A trial is being held for crimes that are accused of having sexual intercourse. What's more, men regularly, almost every day, when they are 13 years of age or older in adolescence, need to ejaculate from the genitals. That means that a private, and they take a policy of avoiding them, and women pay men's salaries. What they do, and raise children, it becomes a thought pattern and an action pattern to think about how much important cash you have. Animals such as monkeys, pigs, dogs, and cats do not have any of these free-thinking and behavioral patterns of sexual behavior. A strong male person, indiscriminately, he puts his penis in the vaginal opening of an unspecified number of females like a daily lunchbox. Normally, non-human animals do not self-harm or masturbate. These are also thought to be intricately related to multiple genetic elements. In this wide world, it is quite difficult to meet a breeding partner. There are also hermaphrodites, such as earthworms and aplysia, and transsexual organisms, such as the fish anemone fish that became the model for Nemo. Humans also have homo and lesbian. Rather than a disorder of the brain or body tissue, this is often used as a means when males and females cannot meet. The worst. HIV is a sexually transmitted disease that is transmitted through semen, the mucus of the female genitals, and saliva. The infection rate and infection probability are extremely low. Therefore, it is not in an infection explosion state. Until that time, humankind was in a state where it was possible to leave offspring if the men or women that a particular lover could get, and if they strictly adhered to wearing condoms. Furthermore, if saliva infection and infectivity are unknown, a state of emergency will be declared. I don't know where the sexually transmitted superspreader is. Except for males who are chosen by females, that is, the emperor and aristocrats. Men like Kim Jong-un, who dominates dictatorship nations like North Korea, and what their parents are doing. There is a fierce battle between males that can be life-threatening. This is called youth quarrel, sometimes called bullying. When those thought patterns and behavior patterns evolve, they cause paranormal phenomena such as psychic phenomena. There is no principle, reason, or evidence. Men, I rarely fight until I die, but the wounds I get at that time make me disabled, hit with a metal bat, or hit each other. You lose your life. Weapons such as machine guns and knives are the last resort. Sometimes those patterns of behavior are called war. Even if males do not fight with each other by force, they try to attract females with their hands, such as singing and dancing. It becomes a state of rock and roll. That is, young people play the guitar and smoke, or buy a luxury car by car, or form a bandmate, and try to attract women with that skill.
Both their health and income
Young boys
is a
also
hard
pay
balance
attention to their appearance, such as their clothes. The girl tries to
This
be
is my only
attractive
job
in
that can
adolescence
earn
and
enough
shortens
money
her
to support
skirt
the
to make her
family.
legs look intentional
Due to
or
the
lose
lockdown,
weight.
I lost all
If
my
a man
income.
does not see it, he will be cut off and get angry. For males, this process
There
is
is
the
no
most
effective
troublesome.
way to protect
I don't want to
yourself from
spend as much
coronavirus.
money as possible. Rather,
What
the
should we do?
process is through in a
Spray
recession
cans from
without
head to
work.
toe with
It's not
disinfectant?
without libido, but
It's not
there is also a
profitable.
theory that herbivorous boys who have recently appeared are reluctant to have romance or sex because this process is troublesome. But this is a mistake, because, every day, many men are arrested indiscriminately for molesting and obscene acts aimed at young women. The criminal
Like few other
tactics
professions,
include
their health
pursuing,
and livelihood
suddenly
are on the
hugging,
line.
rubbing the breast,
and the
and touching
varying
the
degrees
genitals.
of legality
The
and
news
within which they
reports,
operate
details are
provide another
unknown.
layer of vulnerability. Many in the sex work community are struggling to
But to be
survive.
clear, there is no money. Many Japanese men have no
Potential
choice but to have sex
epidemiological
without
super
paying.
spreaders. That's
The
what some German
detailed and
politicians
specific
call
criminal
sex
methods
workers
are
during
stored
the
by the police on the
coronavirus
interview
outbreak. A label
database.
that's caused some pushback.
Other than
Now
adult
that
sites,
brothels
the
and other
content will be at a
establishments are
level that
reopening, we
cannot
look
be
at how the
said.
pandemic has been impacting
Anyway, for
business.
living
It is the
things, survival
very
and
opposite
leaving their
of social
genes are the
distancing.
two major themes of life. Just as you get food, you work hard to have sex.
Profession. But it's the very opposite of social distancing. So the coronavirus crisis has made life tough for those who make a living selling their bodies. The virus threatens the very core of their business.
Some of my guests have weakened immune systems, especially if they're a bit older. It makes you think, what if I were to infect them?
Germany's brothels have to close for a while amid a lockdown that's recently started to ease. But many of the country's estimated 400,000 sex workers live in a precarious economic situation anyway. The lockdown made their lives more difficult.
They haven't put any money aside. Their work is banned from one day to the next. It's very difficult.
This support centre for prostitutes is doing what it can to help women get by. not all brothels have been allowed to reopen across Germany yet.
If you use the proper disinfection materials, what can go wrong? Beauty salons are open, dentists are operating, so
At this venue, efforts are being made to make sure surfaces are clean. But doctors say such measures won't keep customers or sex workers safe.
this hygiene plan is well meant, but considering how close the contacts are and how difficult it is to trace the customers, I really doubt it will work.
Meanwhile, COVID has rekindled a political debate about prostitution. 16 members of the German parliament launched a campaign to get it banned. They say the country's liberal laws have not protected women as they were intended.
18 years on, we know it has totally failed. Germany is the portal of Europe. We are a target country for European and worldwide trafficking of people for sexual exploitation.
Other politicians say all a ban ever does is push the problems into the shadows, beyond the reach of laws. And the coronavirus has proved that.
Right now, we're seeing that many women can't work anymore because of the contact ban, being kept like animals and exploited by their customers. And that's what will happen if we try to outlaw prostitution.
It's an old debate with new relevance because of the virus. For now, what most of the women say they're worried about is staying in work and staying safe.
For more, let's bring in Taina Yename. She is the Executive Director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. Welcome to the program. Countries are reopening their economies. Should sex workers also be allowed to get back to their jobs?
Well, this question is rather complicated because you are assuming that prostitution is work like any other, which we don't agree on. And also, this is not about simply the women in prostitution that we are talking about. We're talking about a system of exploitation. The situation of prostitution in Germany, which, as we all know, is legal, has contributed to a vast system of commercial sexual exploitation that is countrywide brothels that make money from the trafficking and exploitation of the most vulnerable women from Eastern Europe and the global South. So the question that we need to ask is, should brothels not reopen? Because we know that brothel owners and brothel managers are part of a global multi-billion-dollar system of severe exploitation of human rights violations that humanizes women and contributes to severe physical, psychological, and other harm.
Tiana, have coronavirus restrictions like closed borders had any impact on the trafficking of women and girls?
Well, the coronavirus has really put a spotlight on what happens to the most vulnerable, right? So I am in the United States. We see the inequality, economic, racial, and other inequalities that have been exacerbated by the coronavirus. It is exactly the same scenario for prostituted and sex trafficked women in Germany, where the borders are closed, women are on the street, and again, you know, if prostitution were a job like any other, people would register. Germany estimates that up to between 200 and 400,000 women and a few men and trans women are in prostitution. Only 39 have registered with the government. That says something to the German government. That says that the laws will not eliminate the stigma attached to prostitution, and also they truly fail to examine who the human beings are who are being bought and sold by men. And it's also, how are you going to exercise safety measures that all of the health institutions have given us under the Corona guideline when it comes to exchange of bodily fluid and all of the other sexual acts that are involved in prostitution. It is absolutely impossible.
Of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, we have to leave it there. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Next up are your questions about the novel coronavirus, and our science correspondent Derek Williams has you.
What about people testing positive weeks or even months after your first positive PCR test? What does this mean?
Some people continue to test positive for the virus long after coming down with the disease. We still don't really know what that means. The problem is that a PCR test only detects SARS-CoV-2's genetic material, its RNA, but it doesn't say anything about whether or not that DNA is coming from viable virus. To find that out, you have to culture a sample from the positive patient, which is laborious and time-consuming because the sample is potentially infectious. But where that's been done, the WHO says that very rarely serious adverse effects have proven occur. But despite that, there's no question that it's very much out of process. So, with our theoretically autoimmune disorder, yes, I guess so. The chances, frankly, to be very slight. Assuming that the vaccine
On June the 15th, travel restrictions on Germans leaving the country will be lifted. Is it also reopening its borders to EU nationals?
in the course of its lockdown, Germany introduced plans for most non-essential travel, and some of them will continue through June 15th. Cross-border travel have already been reopened. Checks are no longer really systematic. The country's interior ministry has stated that it's now planning to also lift those bans on that day for travelers from other EU member states, as well as Britain, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland, as long as lockdowns and travel bans are also eased in those countries. German health officials will be keeping a close eye on coronavirus-related activity levels, so there's a chance those plans will change if things also change on the ground somewhere in Europe, and it's still a pretty fluid situation.
と言います。小太郎で